Hello, I'm Steve Shaw, National Coordinator of Football Officials and Secretary Rules Editor for the NCAA. And today we're presenting our first preseason training video of 2023. And we're going to be focused on our 6 rule changes. We're going to hit a couple of impactful editorial changes. And we'll also cover a couple mechanics changes that we all need to be together on. Now, the 3 rule changes focused on the clock. People really said the Rules Committee did it just to shorten the game, but that is not the case at all. The goals of the Rules Committee were really threefold. Number 1, to keep the game moving, game flow. Number 2, to consider a modest reduction in the number of plays per game. And then finally, to drive consistency in officiating, specifically around our clock mechanics. Now, everything we're going to be talking about has been approved for Division I and Division II, but in Division III, the first down timing rule is still pending prop action, so stay tuned on that. Now, one final note, regardless of your conference affiliation, we are all one CFO, and we need to be together on our rule interpretations, our mechanics, and our officiating philosophies, which now we're going to refer to as our officiating standards. That is very important. It's a national game, and we've got to be one CFO. So with that, let's get straight on into our video. Our first rule change is codifying our NCAA drone policy. Now, this rule will be the responsibility of game management, and it states that drones are not allowed over the field or the team area when squad members are present within the playing enclosure. Now, outside the limit lines, game management handles all drone activity. They've got to stay within FAA, state, and local laws, including campus policy. Some campuses do not even allow drones at all on their campus. But where we come in is if we get a wayward drone over the field or team area when squad members are present on the field, then we're going to use Rule 333 and temporarily suspend the game until game management clears the drone. And as you can see from footage last year, this is not a new occurrence. It happened last year, and when it did, the referee and the crew handled this very well. They stopped the game, and even though there was a significant delay, game management ultimately handled the drone, and we were able to resume play. Our second change gives us strong guidance around the halftime intermission. Now, our pregame warm-up rules are very prescriptive, but the book was mostly silent on halftime activities. And now we have defined procedures. First, game management will determine all timing of halftime activities and will determine when the field is available to the teams, but it must be available no later than 3 minutes prior to the second half kickoff. And when any squad member enters the playing enclosure during the halftime intermission, a staff member, not necessarily a coach, but a staff member from that team must be present on the field. And if kickers or other squad members come out before the field is available, then they have to stay in the team area. And if they have kickers out, they've got to kick into the practice kicking nets until the field is available. And then when the field becomes available as defined by game management, then we're going to divide the field into the L-shaped configuration, just like we do in pregame warm-ups where the 30-yard line becomes the L. And that's really to keep the teams separated. And one final note is when the field is available to players, whatever time the game management dictates, then at least 2 game officials must be present back on the field. Our next 3 rule changes all involve the clock and timing of the game. And so first we're making a change that if a penalty is accepted for a live ball foul during a down in which the game clock expires in a quarter, the period shall be extended for an untimed down only in the second or fourth quarter, not in the first or third. Now, this includes situations with offsetting fouls or inadvertent whistle. But if we do have a foul that's accepted at the end of the first or third quarter, we're not going to extend that quarter, but the penalty enforcement will be carried over to the following quarter. Now, the intent of this rule change is to limit additional plays in the game. Our next change in timing of the game is the clock status after first downs. Now, with 2 minutes or more remaining in the half, now the game clock will no longer be stopped to award Team A's first down when the play ends in bounds. But with less than 2 minutes remaining in the second or fourth quarter, the game clock will be stopped to award Team A a first down and will restart on the referee's signal. Now, this will have no impact when Team B is awarded a first down and will next snap the ball. The game clock will start on the snap there. And this is approved for Division I and Division II. As we noted earlier, we still are awaiting prop action for Division III. But while we're discussing this change, I want to discuss our mechanics and the adjustments from an officiating perspective that are necessary with this rule change. And so what we're saying is now the covering official will determine if the game clock is under 2 minutes when the play is ruled dead, and will have the primary responsibility to make the decision to stop the clock. And when in question, we want to stop the clock. And as a reminder, this is not reviewable in replay as far as stopping the clock or not stopping the clock as we approach 2 minutes in the half. Now, when the game clock is stopped to award Team A a first down within the last 2 minutes of each half, the clock will be started by the referee, and we want to be consistent with this when the ball is ready for play. So we know that the ball is ready for play when the official places the ball down and is in position to officiate. Our final change in timing, and this rule change really impacts more the flow of the game, and that is consecutive charge team timeouts will no longer be allowed by the same team in any individual dead ball period. Now, as we know, each team is entitled to 3 timeouts per half, but no more than 1 charged team timeout is available per team per individual dead ball period. So we've gotten some questions. So what if a team calls a team timeout and then their opponent calls a timeout? Well, in this instance, there are no more timeouts available for either team within that dead ball period. A team doesn't reset because the other team calls timeout. And the ball truly must become alive. So if a team calls a timeout and then we have a dead ball foul before the ball becomes alive, so a false start, then that team does not have a timeout available until there is actually live ball action. And finally, it's very important in this change, the last bullet here, that when a team's charge timeouts are not available or are exhausted, and if it requests a timeout, the official shall not acknowledge this request. If we accidentally acknowledge that request, many times the team gets the effective timeout. So it's important. There's no penalty for a team or a coach calling a timeout that they don't have, but we are not to acknowledge that request. Our final rule change for the 2023 season is really an effort to modernize our game for teams not having instant replay. And so now the optional use of instant replay in games that do not have an instant replay booth official is permissible, but if used, it must be in full compliance with Rule 12 with the following exceptions. The referee is now the sole decision maker on any review and can include an additional crew member to consult with on the review. And the equipment used in this review must be located outside the limit lines on the sideline or end zone, must be completely outside the team area and away from fans and sideline personnel. Now, a couple of other exceptions is the referee will stop the game to review all targeting fouls that are called on the field. But the only other method to stop the game for a replay review is through a head coach challenge. And this is going to be the same as a head coach challenge in our current rule. And when the head coach does request a timeout for replay review, the challenge flag, we're going to use a challenge flag, it must be dropped onto the field of play. Now, other than targeting, the crew on the field may not initiate a replay review. It is only through a head coach challenge. And one final change is we're going to give the head coach the ability to initiate a targeting review. Since we don't have a booth official, and we know the booth official now can create targeting from the booth, since that booth official is not there, we're going to allow the coach to initiate a targeting review. But this is now a big reason for all officials, not just officials using replay, to understand completely Rule 12. Our first editorial change, we're going to take a look at a slight tweak to our blocking below the waist rule. Now, we know that Team B players aligned in a stationary position within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage within the tackle box may legally block below the waist in the tackle box on their initial line chart. All other Team B players are not allowed to block below the waist, except against, the rule used to say, against a ball carrier. Now it's